There's a war coming, and it's going to take an unlikely group of psyops to stop it. Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. We'll be bringing back the regular Harbinger storylines, but there was a request from Valiant to cover this one sooner, as some of the characters in it are a part of their new Generation Zero storyline. So if you want to continue with the characters that arrive in this storyline, check out Generation Zero. Rising Spirit acting director Morris Kozel sits in the isolation chamber, the most secure room in the United States, with the director of the National Intelligence Agency talking to him. Morris is here to explain just what Rising Spirit's PSYOT project is, and how recent events came to be, starting with the beginning of their China incident. 9 days ago, Rising Spirit deployed some of their PSYOT weapons to contain a certain incident. An incident where a synthetic virus that PRS had been developing had broken out. They used their PSYOT weapons to stop the spread of things before it became a worldwide problem, resulting in the killing of all of those infected. Morris asks the director to think about it. PRS saved the world that day by sending in their child PSYOTs to eradicate the virus, which is what their purpose is, meet the most uncommon of threats. And the director tells Morris that he only saved the world from themselves, which seems to be a pattern with this company. Even their weapon, known as Bloodshot, has been rogue for nearly 2 months. Morris tells him that he thinks that maybe everyone here is just being a little too hostile, and they ask him, hostile? We haven't even begun to get hostile. Back then, Peter Stanchik and his Renegades had finally been able to step ahead of Toya Harada and the Harbinger Foundation, but that's when another threat had come for them. As Charlene Dupra, aka Flamingo, lays on top of their van to get some sun, she sees Faith Herbert, aka Zephyr, come crashing down. Charlene manages to roll away, but then a man jumps on top of the van, spraying everyone with bullets. Peter watches as his friends are slaughtered before him, and when he goes to take the man down, the man lifts his shirt, showing that his body is rigged with C4. Peter gets too close and the explosion goes off, knocking him back, and then he wakes up to discover that he's not in the desert, which is where they were before. He's instead lying on a pile of dead monks, and he sees that this isn't real, because when he looks around, he sees the bleeding monk. The monk tells them that there are children like them, psyots that have been tortured and imprisoned, but soon they will be free. And them being free will reveal their kind's existence to the world, and what Peter sees around him, the dead bodies, will be the result if the world knows about them, the psyots dying. The monk asks him to help him stop a war in which Peter would play a large role. Behind the two of them, though, Toya stands, asking if the monk is working against him by bringing Peter here. Peter's eyes begin to glow as he readies himself for an attack, but the monk tells him if they aren't careful, they will be the ones to whittle them down to nothing. Peter then wakes up in the desert and he sees that his friend's dying was just another possible vision. Elsewhere in the Nevada desert, it is time for free play at the Rising Spirit facility. At this time, the children get to play with their powers without any kind of psionic dampeners. You see, the Rising Spirit facility is training children's psyots, and this is where the children from the China incident live. One of them, Tara, tells Christian that she's seeing something and she can't tell what it is, but it's almost here. Later that night, as the children sleep, a loud rumble can be heard and it wakes up the children. Christian gets up and he sees that their containment field is down, and this is their chance to break out of Rising Spirit's facilities. As Christian starts to gather everyone up, some of the other children come running and yelling that the psyot killer is here, and behind them is Bloodshot. Christian takes some of the kids and he begins to escape onto an aircraft to get away, but the ones that couldn't fit or make it, Bloodshot got to. One of the children with Bloodshot begins to panic that her brother that she has a link to is on the aircraft leaving, and Bloodshot tells the children, "Relax, I'm not here to harm you. I'm actually here to keep you safe." Morris goes on to state that Toya Harada is the one behind the attack on the facility. The scientist working under PRS was actually working for Toya Harada, who runs the enemy organization, the Harbinger Foundation, and with that, he managed to have Bloodshot taken offline and then used against them. The aircraft that Christian and the rest of them escaped in ended up crashing into the Bellagio. The children all begin to get out of the aircraft, but the crash left Jessica hurt. Christian's abilities allow him to heal people, so he heals Jessica from the wound that she suffered. Christian then tells everyone that they'll be using this building to make their final stand, and that's when another of the children, Jillian, looks at the TV to watch the news reports regarding a terrorist attack. Seeing this is what the humans fear, she creates a projection of terrorists to mask their presence in the Bellagio. Back with the other children, Bloodshot has taken them to an abandoned resort that he set up as a defensive base. But once Bloodshot takes the children inside, Toya Harada and his men have come to take the children. Bloodshot was made by the PRS as a weapon, but another important role for him was to kill Toya Harada. Just seeing him and having him in his presence puts Bloodshot into a rage, awakening finding latent abilities and directives. Bloodshot begins to open fire on Harada, but Harada just redirects the bullets back at Bloodshot. Bloodshot then drops his gun and he charges in for an attack, and while doing so, he reveals one of his new abilities. And as Bloodshot's face begins to open up from one of Harada's blasts, his brain releases a synaptic disruptor, disabling any psiots in close range. Once Bloodshot puts Toya Harada to the ground, he then releases some of his nanites from his body, which, once they go into a target, destroy the person from the inside. The beating continues to the point where Toya is hardly able to maintain his young form, and Toya Harada reverts back to his original age. Ion, one of his men, then begins to get up from the disruption field and calls down lightning to stop Bloodshot. Then Toya Harada launches Bloodshot away, but before landing, Bloodshot sets off a bomb covering the whole area in fire. Toya then walks towards Bloodshot after he landed to kill him, and the children get into the vehicle prepared for their escape, and they use it to ram Toya, which also mistakenly runs over Bloodshot in the process. Toya regroups with his men, but Saturn is badly hurt, so Toya pulls out a knife. He apologizes for what he's about to do. The nanites in him are devouring him, so he must give them to someone else. After making a cut into his arm, he plunges his hand into Saturn and performs a transfusion, giving her the nanites that Bloodshot put into Toya to kill him. He then tells her that he'll show mercy to her. Once the transfusion is complete, he'll kill her so she doesn't feel pain. Over in Canada though, a man lives in a small trailer alone, and he's soon visited by someone in a helicopter. The man living there is Major Charlie Palmer. The man visiting is Morris Cozell. Morris tells him that the PRS needs him to come back, and even though Bloodshot was the hardcore replacement, things are not going according to plan. Morris tells him that he still has some expensive PRS hardware in his brain, and they need it. So either Morris or someone else at PRS can blow up his brain still if he doesn't return. Charlie looks at him and tells him to let him get his toothbrush. Over at the hotel though, Tara begins to see something. Something is coming right now. Through the front door, and outside, it's Peter and the Renegades. Back over in the Nevada desert, James and Catherine, the brother and sister who have been separated, are now within range to link back together. James tells her that she needs to find them, and Catherine tells him not to worry, she has a plan. While the children are outside of the transport, Catherine goes to see Bloodshot and tells him that if he's really here to help them, she can tell him where the rest of the children are. Back over at the hotel, Peter meets with Christian. Peter says that he was brought here by his vision, and the pale white man with a red circle on his chest was there. Christian asks if he's going to help them in their battle. The man will be on his way here to try and take them, but Peter isn't sure, and he says that he'll have to speak with the rest of the team first. Once Peter and the rest of them head into the room, he tells everyone that they never intentionally went into a fight before. Everyone figures that since they're here, they may as well help these kids. Without much of a fight, Peter agrees, and soon everyone begins to get ready for what's about to come. Outside in the desert, Bloodshot, after getting enough protein to grow back his face, takes the children with him while he heads over to the Bellagio to pick up the remaining kids who escaped early on. Christian and the other children begin to gather, but Tara begins to see something is about to happen, and whatever it is coming right above them. Above the hotel, Charlie and his hardcore team are flying in, and their orders are to kill everyone on sight. PRS is gonna stop anything from happening. The men don't have parachutes though. Instead, they call back the Lifeline, the one who works back at the PRS facility that allows them to have unique abilities. Before landing, the men request a shield put on them, and they come crashing through the roof of the hotel. Once on the roof, Charlie calls back to allow true sight, and as he sees through the terrorist event that actually isn't happening, he sees that there's someone in the back projecting them. He then fires a single shot. That shot lands right in the middle of Jillian's head, killing her and stopping the projection. Around the corner though, Christian waits, and once the rest of them catch up with him, they engage Charlie and his men. Down below, Peter and his team have located Bloodshot, and they've already engaged him. While everyone begins their fights back in the desert where Bloodshot came from, Toya Harada took the time that he needed to heal himself. The Harbinger Foundation pinpointed where Toya was, and they're coming to meet him there. Toya asks if they found the children, and a member of the Harbinger Foundation tells him yes. They're currently over in Vegas in the Bellagio. Toya orders his men to head over to where the children are, but then he takes a few members and tells them not to move until he returns from the PRS facility. As the fight continues on, some of the children begin to join the fight against the hardcore soldiers, and during one of the struggles, the aircraft that Christian arrives in is knocked loose and plummets towards the ground. Below, Peter and Bloodshot notice the aircraft falling towards the ground, and everyone manages to get out of the way, but as the aircraft explodes, Charlene uses her abilities to control the flames and begins attacking Bloodshot. However, before she can do any real damage, Faith flies in towards the battle and actually flies into Charlene. Torque looks back and sees that one of the children from Bloodshot's group is controlling her mind. Once Clem sees that he's been spotted, he runs back to Baxter and tells him that it's time. Go ahead and release the monster. Peter runs over to check on Faith, but before he can reach them, Peter is stomped by Bloodshot, hitting him with the butt of his gun. Charlene then blasts him away, and Peter tackles him, and they both land in the waters next to the hotel. They then struggle in the water for a bit, but Peter manages to blast Bloodshot again away from everyone. Peter Peter crawls up to the rocks and Charlene runs over and tells him that they need to get Torque and they need to get out of here. The fighting continues to drag on and everyone begins to lose members. And while this is going on, the hardcore soldiers are starting to kill some of the children. And that's when they realize that their lifeline station isn't in contact anymore, not giving them abilities thanks to Toya Harada. Charlie begins to tell his men to pull back, but 2 of them have already been killed since losing their abilities. Back down below, Peter and the rest of his group begin to withdraw, but that's when one of the children begins to run off. The child running is Jamie when he saw his sister, and then everyone hears a voice. They look up to see Toya Harada there using his powers to broadcast a message to all of the remaining escaped PRS Psyots. He is now in control of the signal to a micro shrapnel that has been implanted into all of them, and he plans on removing it, but he has come here to be their liberator. Christian tells everyone that it feels like a trap and he tells everyone to leave. He will offer himself up along with Tara long enough for everyone else to get away. Christian tells Toya that he will join them for the sole reason that he is not Rising Spirit. Inside the hotel, Peter hides their presence, but Charlene asks where's Faith. Chris tells her that while everyone is fighting Bloodshot, she doesn't think Faith made it. Back in the current times where Morris is being questioned about this event, he explains that that is all he knows about the battle for Las Vegas. The woman from the group stands and shoots the man next to Morris. The director then stands up and tells Morris that he is a disgrace, and Project Rising Spirit is in complete disarray, and they will be giving him $116 billion to rebuild. So congratulations, he is now the new CEO of Rising Spirit. And that brings us to the conclusion of Volume 1 of the Harbinger Wars. We'll be coming back real soon with the next part of this, so I hope you guys are excited, because man, does this get crazy. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian if you want to chat about just about anything. I'll see you guys next time right here.